I swung back to the office garage just to grab the files I'd forgotten. I was supposed to be in a meeting in 20 minutes. That's when I saw his car. The familiar black SUV. Parked in the quietest corner. The engine was running. The windows were thick with fog. And inside, I saw the pale blur of a woman's arm, pulling a shirt back down. My name is Olivia Blackwell, and I am 35 years old. I was born in Kansas, where the skies are wide and the options are narrow. I live in Willow Creek now, a meticulously planned suburb just outside Minneapolis. My life is organized. I am an operations manager at Northline Meridian Strategies. At Northline, we live by a gospel of data. If you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. We have key performance indicators for client-facing bandwidth, for interoffice email response times, even for the optimal stocking level of the good granola bars in the break room. I apply this philosophy to my own life. I use a multi-tab spreadsheet to manage my household finances, my retirement contributions, and the seasonal rotation of my wardrobe. I even have a detailed watering and fertilization schedule for my houseplants. My fiddle leaf fig is thriving. My marriage, however, does not have a KPI. This has always felt like a procedural oversight. Today, my primary objective was closing the Rivington account. It was a big one, the kind that gets you a specific, appreciative nod from the partners and a significant bump in your year-end bonus. I was on the highway, 10 minutes from the client's downtown office, mentally rehearsing my opening slide deck, when a cold, sharp dread washed over me. My briefcase was on the passenger seat. The signed hard copy of the final proposal, the one they needed for their legal department before the presentation, was not in it. It was, I knew with sickening certainty, sitting in the top left drawer of my desk back at the main office, a rookie mistake. The kind of sloppy error that derails a project. I checked the time on my dashboard, 11:30 a.m. My presentation was at 12:15. I swore, a single, sharp word that cut through the polite classical music playing on the radio. I signaled, cut across 2 lanes of traffic, and took the next exit, heading back to my office. My office is Brookfield Plaza, a sprawling glass and steel monument to suburban corporate ambition. Northline Meridian shares the space with a mid-level accounting firm, a sad-looking dental practice, and the regional headquarters for Harbor Lane Capital Group. The underground parking garage at midday on a Tuesday is a concrete void. It smells of damp cement, cold exhaust, and the faint, unsettling sweetness of the industrial cleaner the janitors use. The fluorescent lights buzz and flicker, casting a cold, greenish light that makes everything look like evidence in a crime scene. I usually park on P3, near the main elevator bank. As I rounded the last concrete pillar, my foot was already easing off the accelerator, ready to pull into my designated spot. That is when I saw it. It was parked in the darkest corner of the garage, nosed right up against the stained concrete wall. 3 spots down from the executive VP signs, a charcoal gray pickup truck, Dale's truck, the one he insisted he needed for hauling, though the heaviest thing he had ever hauled was a 60-pound bag of premium lawn fertilizer from the garden center. My first thought was confusion, a simple data mismatch. Dale Nichols, my husband, a senior vice president at Harbor Lane Capital, was not supposed to be here. He was supposed to be 30 miles away, in Bloomington, at an all-day Midwest leadership seminar. He had kissed me goodbye at 6:30 this morning, his jaw smooth, smelling of expensive shaving cream and the vague, metallic scent of ambition. He had complained about the death by PowerPoint he was about to endure. The truck was running. I could hear the low, throaty rumble of the engine, a sound I knew as well as my own heartbeat. It was the only sound in the garage besides the hum of the lights, and the windows were fogged. Not just a little misty, they were thick and opaque with condensation, the kind of humidity generated by body heat and heavy breathing in a small, enclosed space. My foot, which had been hovering, pressed the brake. My car stopped, 10 yards away. I watched. A shadow moved inside the cab, a silhouette. It leaned from the passenger side toward the driver's side. I heard a sound, or maybe I felt it. A sound muffled by 2 layers of glass and the idling engine, a high-pitched giggle, quickly suppressed. Then I saw a hand. It was small, pale, with fingernails painted a bright, almost fluorescent pink. The hand appeared on the passenger window, which was streaked with moisture. It pressed against the glass, then vanished. A moment later, I saw the arm again, a blur of motion. A dark blue silk shirt was being tugged. A hand was pulling it down, hastily, over a bare shoulder. For a fraction of a second, in the sickly green light, I saw the strap of a black lace bra. My heart did not break. It did not sink. It did something much more efficient. It slammed against my ribs, hard, just once, like a circuit breaker resetting. The blood drained from my face. My hands felt cold and distant on the steering wheel. But my brain, my organized, reliable, spreadsheet-loving brain did exactly what I had trained it to do. It switched to project management mode. This was no longer a personal crisis. This was an unscheduled operational failure, and it required immediate, impartial data collection. I killed my headlights. I put my car in park. I sat perfectly still. I forced myself to breathe. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. I looked at the clock. 11:43 a.m. Item 1, husband, located in the wrong place. Item, at the wrong time. Item with one unidentified female associate. Item in a compromised, fog-windowed scenario. I scanned the environment. Camera 22, the black dome in the ceiling, was pointed directly at his truck. The red light was blinking. Excellent. I noted the license plate, though I knew it by heart. I noted the specific parking bay. I forced myself to stay there, collecting data. For 30 seconds. The passenger door opened a crack, letting out a rush of humid air and another burst of laughter. The woman leaned out slightly, as if to fix her clothes, and in that moment, the sterile light hit her face. Harper Lane. The name was processed instantly. Harper Lane, the new administrative assistant in Dale's division, the one he had mentioned, twice. She's great, he'd said over dinner last week. Really sharp, gets things done. Sweet kid, honestly, like a little sister. She was not his sister. She was tucking that blue silk shirt into the waistband of a very tight black skirt. As Harper started to pull the door closed, Dale must have seen my car, or maybe just the shadow of it. He glanced up, his outline, just a dark shape behind the now clearing windshield, froze. His head snapped toward me. His eyes, even from this distance, met the spot where I was sitting. I saw his entire body jolt, his face, even in the dim light, contorted. I could see the panic hit him, the instant, frantic calculation. His hand flew up, fumbling with the rearview mirror or the seat adjustment. I could not tell. He was already composing the lie, the excuse, the plausible deniability. I did not give him the chance to use it. I did not get out of the car. I did not pound on the foggy glass. I did not scream his name. I did not cry. That would be messy. That would be inefficient. That would be giving up control. Instead, I put my car silently into reverse. I backed up, slow and steady, 20 feet, into a dark alcove behind a massive concrete support pillar. My car was now completely hidden from his line of sight. I let them believe they were safe. I let them believe that the flicker of motion they saw was just another car passing by, another employee late for lunch. I sat in the dark for 1 full minute. I timed it. Then, I got out of my car. I did not go to the main elevators. I walked to the far end of the garage and took the employee stairwell. It smelled like urine and rust. My heels clicked, sharp and angry, on the metal steps. I climbed the 3 flights, my breathing even, my hands perfectly steady. I walked through the North Line office. Pam, our receptionist, looked up and smiled. Forgot something. Olivia. The Rivington file. Pam, can you believe it? I smiled back. My face felt like a mask, but it was a good mask. I went to my desk. I unlocked the top left drawer. There it was, the 20-page contract, bound in a neat blue folder. I picked it up. The The paper felt solid, real, and as I held it, I made a decision. It was not a decision born of passion or rage. It was an operational decision, a strategic pivot. It is not that I did not see it. It is that I am going to pretend I did not see it. For now, I walked back out, past Pam, and took the main glass elevator down to the lobby, deliberately bypassing the garage level. I walked out the front doors of Brookfield Plaza and into the bright, indifferent afternoon sun. I retrieved my car, which I had parked in a visitor spot on my way out. I drove to the client's office. I was, in the end, only 5 minutes late. I walked into the boardroom. I smiled. I shook hands. "My apologies," I said, my voice smooth and confident. The traffic on the interstate was just terrible. The presentation was flawless. I was sharp. I was insightful. I was in complete control. I navigated their toughest questions. I highlighted the long-term cost benefits, and I secured the Rivington account before we even broke for lunch. My serious life, the one with the clear metrics and the achievable goals, was running perfectly. My marriage, however, had just been minimized. It was still running in the background, a dangerous, virus-infected browser tab, silently consuming resources, and I knew, with absolute, cold certainty, that I would have to deal with it. I would have to click on that tab, see the full extent of the damage, and then I would have to shut it down. I did not just land the Rivington account. I secured it with a 3-year exclusivity clause. My director, a man who usually communicates in dissatisfied grunts, sent me a 2-sentence email of congratulations that was positively effusive. For those 2 hours in the boardroom, I was the human embodiment of Northline Meridian's core values: efficient, precise, and entirely in control. All the while, a low-priority process was running in the background of my mind. It was a continuous video loop, rendered in the sickly green of the garage lights, a fogged window, a flash of black lace, a pale, small hand pulling a silk shirt back into place. I drove home from the Rivington offices at 5:30 p.m., merging into the thick, slow-moving river of commuter traffic. I had been praised by my superiors. My project was a success, and my KPIs for the quarter looked incredible. I felt nothing. The adrenaline from the presentation had faded, leaving only a cold, hollow space. My phone buzzed in the center console. I glanced down. A text from Dale. "Hey, this Chicago meeting is dragging on forever. Looks like I'm going to have to stay overnight. The weather's turning, and I don't want to risk the flight back. Don't wait for me. Love you." I stared at the words. Chicago. Overnight. Love you. I felt the corners of my mouth tighten. Not in a smile, but in a grim acknowledgement of the protocol. He was, at this very moment, in the same city as me, probably within a 5-mile radius. He was not in Chicago, but he was, almost certainly, going to be staying overnight somewhere. I waited until I was stopped at a red light. I picked up the phone. I took a clear, high-resolution screenshot of the text message. I navigated to my photos, created a new, hidden album, and titled it Project Dale, Raw Evidence. I saved the screenshot. The light turned green. I put the phone down and drove home. We live in Stonebridge Estates, a neighborhood of aggressively perfect 4-bedroom neo-colonials. Our lawn, which I manage via a soil testing and fertilization spreadsheet, is a uniform, vibrant green. Our house has tasteful gray shutters. A polite, unassuming American flag hangs from a bracket by the front door, precisely angled according to the Homeowners Association guidelines. We are, by all external metrics, a perfect family. We are the smiling, stable people the neighbors talk about. I parked in the garage, the space next to mine conspicuously empty. I walked into the house. It was silent. I dropped my briefcase by the door. I did not turn on the main lights. I went straight to the kitchen, poured a large glass of very cold water, and drank it in 3 long, measured swallows. Then I went upstairs to my home office. I sat down in my ergonomic chair. I woke my laptop. The screen glowed to life, illuminating my clean, organized desk. I opened the File Explorer. I created a new primary directory on my secure drive, the one I use for personal taxes and encrypted work files. I named it Project Dale Nichols. Inside this main folder, I created a logical structure of subfolders. Transactions Work Calendar, Cross-ref photos, video cap messages, screenshots, and after a moment's consideration, a final folder. Retaliation Ideas, Strategic. This was the first phase, the discovery phase. Before any project launch, you must understand the full scope of the problem. I started with the Transactions folder. I opened a new browser tab. I logged into our joint checking account. We had merged our finances when we got married. Total transparency, Dale had said, smiling that broad, honest-looking smile of his. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. One team. I had always handled the finances. Of course. He found it boring. I opened the statements for the last 6 months. I did not look for big, obvious purchases. I looked for patterns. It took me less than 10 minutes to find one. The Linden Suites downtown, a boutique hotel, not part of a major chain, a charge for $249. It appeared on a Thursday. I scrolled back. 2 weeks earlier, another Thursday, same charge, and 2 weeks before that, a clear, recurring expense, every other Thursday, like clockwork. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I opened another tab, Riverside Row. It was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, famous for its 32-ounce tomahawk steak and its $1,000 wine list, a place you go to be seen or to celebrate. I had never been. There were 3 charges, all from the last 2 months, totaling over $900. My next click was to Dale's Harbor Lane Capital corporate portal. I had his login. He had given it to me years ago when he needed me to just quickly find an old pay stub for our mortgage application. He had never changed the password. I accessed his expense reports. This, I thought, is where the man's arrogance truly shines. I opened his report 2 weeks ago. On Thursday, he stayed at the Linden Suites. According to his submitted expenses, he had been entertaining a client from the Chicago office at a different hotel, the Marriott City Center. He had expensed a $200 dinner at their Bland Lobby Steakhouse. I cross-referenced the timestamps. The charge at the Linden Suites, from our joint account, had posted at 3:02 p.m. The client dinner at the Marriott had been charged to the corporate card at 8:15 p.m. He was double-dipping. He was using our money, my money, to pay for the hotel room in the afternoon. Then, he was taking her to a separate, expensive dinner, or perhaps just faking the dinner entirely and charging it to his employer. He was not just a cheater. He was an inefficient, high-risk, fraudulent cheater. He was spending his company's money and his wife's money on the same affair, on the same day. He was creating a paper trail a first-year auditor could follow. The faint, aching pressure in my chest, the one that had been building since 11:43 this morning, suddenly receded. It was replaced by the cold, clean thrill of analysis. He was not a monster. He was just a poorly managed project. I opened a new Excel spreadsheet. I named the file Master Timeline V1. I created the columns Date, Location Primary, Location Alibi, Dale's Stated Reason, Probable Truth, Evidence Ref. Joint Act, Evidence Ref. Corporate Card. Notes. I began to populate the cells. Each line item I entered, each date I cross-referenced, felt like a small, satisfying click. 10/16/2025. Linden Suites downtown, Marriott City Center, client dinner, Chicago office, afternoon at Linden, Worcester Harper, fake dinner at Marriott, JNT 1016 249 Huzzer, Core P 1016 200 250, see message 1016, long day, 10/30/2025. Linden Suites downtown, Bloomington seminar, all-day leadership seminar, morning at seminar, afternoon at Linden with her Harper, JNT 1030 249. 00. NOA. Seminar was real. See message 10/30. So tired. 11/12/2025. Riverside Row. Home. Working late. Finalizing quarterly reports. Dinner at Riverside with signed Harper. JNT 1112. 3:15:40. NA. Date of sweet kid comment. I worked for 2 hours. The spreadsheet grew. The pattern was undeniable. At 9:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was a video call. From Dale. I let it ring 3 times. I took a deep breath, composed my face into an expression of mild, wifely concern, and answered. His face filled the screen. He looked tired, but in a self-satisfied, hard-working husband way. He was in a hotel room, as promised. The background was aggressively generic, beige curtains, drawn, a bland, dark wood headboard. It could have been Chicago. It could have been the Linden Suites, 10 miles away. Hey, he said, his voice warm and weary. Just checking in. What a day. Hi, honey, I said. My voice was perfect. Just the right amount of sympathy. You look exhausted. Was the seminar awful? You have no idea, he said, rubbing his eyes. Just brutal. I'm glad I decided to stay. The snow's really coming down here. I glanced out my own window. The sky over Willow Creek was perfectly clear. Oh, that's too bad, I said. Well, get some rest. I'm just finishing up some work. I closed the Rivington account. That's my girl, he said, brightening. I knew you would. See, we're a power couple. I smiled. Get some sleep, Dale. I will. Love you. Liv. So much. Love you too, I said. And just as he was about to press the end call button, I heard it. It was faint, almost imperceptible, just on the edge of the microphone's range. A soft, distinct knock. Knock, knock, knock. Not a hotel staff knock. Not a room service knock. It was a soft, familiar. It's me knock. I saw Dale's eyes flicker, just for a millisecond, to his left, off camera. I saw the muscles in his jaw tighten. Okay, good night, he said, his voice suddenly too loud, too cheerful. The screen went black before I could even say goodbye. I sat in the silence of my office. I turned back to my laptop. I opened a new text document in the Project Dale Nichols folder. I named it Analytics Personal. I typed 2 lines. Dale's strength. He is a very convincing liar. Dale's weakness. He assumes everyone else is stupid. I saved the document. I looked at the spreadsheet, at the text messages, at the web of lies I had just begun to unravel. It was a mess. It was complicated. It was a disaster. But it was, for the first time, a measurable disaster. I closed the laptop. I knew what I had to do. Before I could tear any of it down, before I could make a single move, I needed a detailed blueprint of the entire rotten structure. The next evening, my house was suffocatingly quiet. Dale was still stuck in Chicago, a status he had confirmed with a text that morning, complete with a frowny face emoji regarding the terrible airport hotel coffee. I had spent the day at work, operating at what I would estimate was 110% capacity, clearing my inbox, finalizing 2 project charters, and reformatting my entire team's workflow in a new cloud-based system. I was a machine of pure, uncomplicated efficiency, the entire time, the spreadsheet. Master Timeline V1 was open on my second monitor, minimized but present. Every time I hit a work milestone, I would allow myself a small, 5-minute break to do a new search, to cross-reference another date. I had found 2 more Riverside Row dinners and a recurring monthly Venmo payment to an unknown name. The project's scope was expanding. At 7:30, my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. It was not Dale. It was a text from Naomi Brooks. Wine night, I absolutely have to vent about my boss's latest email. It's a fireable offense. My place. Naomi lived directly across the street. She was 34, a marketing specialist for a high-end cosmetics company, and had a spectacular cloud of curly hair that seemed to defy gravity and humidity. She also had a wonderful habit of using small, precise curse words in otherwise polite conversation. I looked at the silence of my own house. I looked at the folder on my laptop. I needed a different data set. On my way, I texted back. I grabbed my keys, slipped on a pair of shoes, and walked across the perfectly manicured lawn. Under the polite glow of the Stonebridge Estates streetlights, Naomi's house smelled like vanilla, sandalwood, and a faint hint of citrus. It was a Pinterest board brought to life cozy gray sofas, artfully arranged throw pillows, and in the entryway, a large rustic wooden sign that proclaimed, "Bless this mess," in elegant white script. Her mess was, of course, impeccably curated. "Thank God," she said, opening the door before I had a chance to ring the bell. She was already holding a wine glass. He sent an email, Olivia at 6:45 p.m., requesting a full demographic breakdown for the new eyeshadow palette. For a 7 a.m. meeting, he's a sociopath. She led me to the kitchen, where an already open bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon was breathing on the white quartz island. She poured me a glass, a generous one. "So," I said, "a full demographic breakdown." "For Midnight Glimmer," she said, her voice dripping with scorn. "As if it's not just for women aged 25 to 55 who are sad and shop online after 9 p.m., which I told him, in corporate speak, of course. We sat on the comfortable stools at her island. For the first hour, we did exactly what the wine night protocol demanded. We dissected her boss's incompetence. We analyzed the fatal flaws in Northline's new client-facing interface. We discussed the alarming rise in the homeowners association fees. Then, halfway through my second glass, Naomi's energy shifted. The work venting was a performance. This was the real show. "Ugh," she sighed, swirling her wine. "And on top of it all, Trevor is just being Trevor." Trevor Hayes was Naomi's husband, a sales director for a big distribution company. He was a man defined by his loud laugh, his love of golf, and his constant travel. "What's he done now?" I asked, taking a careful sip. "He's on another road show. That's what he calls it. A road show. Like he's a rock band and not a guy who sells mid-range plumbing fixtures." She huffed. "And he just bailed on our anniversary dinner. For next week. Bailed? By text?" "That's awful," I said. It was the correct, supportive, neighborly response. "Oh, it gets better," she said, holding up her phone. "This is the why. He can't make our 15th anniversary dinner because he has to attend a mandatory, overnight workshop for the men of the Heartland Leadership Council." She said the name with such profound, withering contempt that a sound escaped me. It was not a laugh. It was a short, sharp, entirely humorless bark of air. Naomi stopped. She stared at me. "What is it that ridiculous it is, isn't it?" I looked at her. The wine, the stress, the absurdity of his excuse. It broke a seal. The carefully compartmentalized data packets in my brain suddenly breached their firewall. "I think," I said, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears, "I have a new data point for you." And I told her. I told her everything. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I reported it, just like I would report a critical systems failure at Northline. I laid out the timeline, the forgotten Rivington file, the trip back to Brookfield Plaza, the charcoal gray truck in the garage. I described the fogged windows. I described the pale pink fingernails. I described the flash of the black lace bra strap. I told her the name Harper Lane. I told her about the Chicago text and the fake snowstorm. I even told her about the Project Dale Nichols folder on my laptop and the discovery of the Linden Suites. I laid out all the facts, clean and objective. Naomi listened. She did not interrupt. She did not offer a single, "Oh, honey," or "I'm so sorry." Her face, which had been animated with irritation, became perfectly, deadly still. She just watched me, her dark eyes analytical. When I finished, she did not say anything for a full 10 seconds. Then, she put her wine glass down on the quartz counter with a quiet, definitive click. "The Linden Suites," she asked, her voice low. "Downtown." "Yes," I said. Why? Because, she said. I am a paranoid, suspicious, and tech-savvy bitch. She picked up her phone. She did not open her texts or her email. She opened a Find My Family tracking app, the kind you're supposed to use to make sure your kids get home from school, or to find your phone when you drop it on the sofa. She tapped on the icon labeled Trevor. She hit Location History. She turned the phone screen toward me. It was a map of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, dotted with blue pins, his office, their gym, the golf club, and then a dense, repeated cluster of pins, all concentrated in one downtown block, the Linden Suites. I looked at her. She looked at me. He's been going there, she whispered. Every other Thursday. For 3 months. I've been driving myself insane. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought the app was broken. I kept telling myself it was a mistake. She scrolled. I thought I was going crazy, she repeated, her voice shaking, but not with sadness, with rage. Turns out the bastards are just splitting the hotel bill, or maybe they have a loyalty program. She looked up from the screen, her eyes locking onto mine. Now, you tell me her name again. Harper Lane, I said, his new assistant, at Harbor Lane Capital. Naomi's face went completely white. Holy hell! She put her phone down and walked into her living room. I heard her open a drawer. She came back holding a stack of mail. She sifted through it, pulling out a printout of an email. Trevor's an idiot, she said. He leaves his laptop open, all the time. A few weeks ago, I saw an email for this stupid men's leadership thing. She pointed to the printout. It was an invitation, a save the date, for a Leadership Circle fall retreat. It was addressed to Trevor. I saw this, she said, and I thought it was just dumb. But I printed it, because I wanted to remember the date to be mad about it. Look at the bottom. She slid the paper across the island. I looked. The email was from Trevor's admin, but at the very bottom, in small print, was a line. Please direct all scheduling questions or dietary restrictions to our event coordinator. And below that, Harper Lane, Administrative Support, Harbor Lane Capital Group. We stared at the name on the paper. She's not just Dale's, I started. She's not just anyone's, Naomi finished. She's the office manager for their secret club. The implications settled over us, cold and heavy. This was not a simple, tawdry affair between my husband and his assistant. This was organized. This was a system. Dale and Trevor, neighbors, and I suddenly realized golf buddies were in on it together. They were using the same hotel, the same coordinator, the same alibi, the men of the Heartland Leadership Council. It was not just a stupid excuse. It was the entire infrastructure. Naomi walked back to the kitchen island and picked up the bottle of Cabernet. She did not pour a small amount. She refilled both of our glasses to the brim. Well, she said, her voice hard and bright, this complicates my marketing plan for Midnight Glimmer. She took a long drink. Listen to me. Olivia, she said, setting her glass down. If he's not in this alone, and if they are this sloppy, I promise you, we are not the only wives in Stonebridge Estates staring at a weird credit card bill. She looked at me, a strategist's fire suddenly igniting in her eyes. You have your spreadsheets. I have his location data. But we're just 2 data points. We need the whole set. She raised her glass. If they have a council, then so do we. I looked at the wine. I looked at her. And for the first time since I'd seen that fogged-up window, I felt something other than cold, methodical rage. I felt a sense of purpose, a new project. What do we call it? I asked. Naomi smiled. A thin, dangerous smile. The Wives Committee, she said. Anonymous, and absolutely no concessions. I raised my glass. I can draft the charter. We clinked glasses. The sound was as sharp and final as a gavel. Naomi was a woman of action. The day after our wine night, she texted me a single line. Committee meeting tonight, 8 p.m., your house. I'm bringing new members. She did not wait for a confirmation. At 8 p.m. on the dot, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Naomi, flanked by two women I recognized from Stonebridge Estates block parties but did not really know. Olivia, this is Jenna Alvarez. This is Lydia Cross. Ladies, this is Olivia Blackwell. She's hosting. Jenna Alvarez was 36, a financial advisor with dark, sharp eyes and an aura of someone who does not tolerate ambiguity. Her husband was Marcus Cole, a VP at a massive logistics firm. Lydia Cross was 33, a defense attorney. She was smaller, with reddish hair pulled into a tight, severe bun. She looked at my living room as if she were assessing it for structural weaknesses. Her husband was Eric Dalton, a product director at the hot new tech company, Aurora Gate Systems. "Come in," I said. I opened wine. "Thank God," Lydia muttered. Stepping past me, I led them to my dining room. My large, polished oak table, usually reserved for holidays and ignored spreadsheet work, had been repurposed. It was now a war room. My laptop was open at the head of the table, displaying the master timeline V1 spreadsheet. Next to it, I had a stack of printed bank statements, a legal pad, and several freshly sharpened pencils. Naomi placed her own laptop down. Along with a thick file folder, Jenna and Lydia paused, taking in the scene. "Okay," Jenna said, pulling out a chair. "This is more organized than my last hostile takeover analysis. I'm in. What are we drinking?" "Cabernet," I said. "Help yourselves." For the next 10 minutes, we established the baseline. I did not give them the full garage story. I kept it clinical. "My husband, Dale Nichols, is engaged in a pattern of behavior," I began. "I have collated data suggesting a recurring, coordinated infidelity, which also appears to involve fraudulent corporate expenses." I presented my spreadsheet. I showed them the Linden Suites charges, the Riverside Row dinners, the cross-reference with the Harbor Lane expense reports, the Chicago alibi. When I finished, there was a heavy silence. Naomi spoke first, projecting her phone's location history onto the smart TV I had in the corner. "My husband, Trevor Hayes, matches the Linden Suites pings. To this day, he calls it the Men of the Heartland Leadership Council, which brings us to—" Jenna Alvarez did not wait for her cue. She placed her own tablet on the table. "Marcus Cole," she said, her voice flat. "My husband. He doesn't have a council. He has a mentorship program for promising young female staffers. That's his official story." She swiped to a credit card statement. A joint card, but one she monitored. "He's very generous with his mentoring. It involves a lot of off-site strategy dinners at the Lantern Room and team-building cocktails at the Nightline Lounge, always on a Thursday." My blood ran cold. The Lantern Room, the Nightline Lounge. I had seen those exact names on Dale's corporate card statement and dismissed them as generic client entertainment. "Wait," I said. "The Lantern Room Dale expensed that 3 weeks ago. He said it was with the Chicago team. Marcus expensed it 3 weeks ago, too," Jenna said, her eyes narrowing. "He said it was with his mentee. They must have a very, very large table." Now, Lydia Cross spoke. She had been silent, observing, her hands steepled. "Eric Dalton," she said, her voice precise, like a scalpel. "My husband, Eric doesn't do mentorship. He's in tech. He does off-site innovation retreats. He's always brainstorming. His favorite place to brainstorm seems to be the Linden Suites." Naomi and I looked at each other. "It gets better," Lydia continued. "Eric is smart. He doesn't use joint cards. He uses his corporate account, which I can't see. But he is also an idiot. He syncs his work email to the home printer. He printed a reservation confirmation last month, then deleted it from his sent folder. He didn't clear the printer's hard cache. I did." She placed a single piece of paper on the table, a reservation confirmation for a King Executive Suite at the Linden Suites, for 2 nights. "And," Lydia said, "while I was in his email, I saw the invite for his retreat. The logistics, the scheduling, the car service are all handled by one person. The three of us said the name at the same time. Harper Lane. The room was silent. 4 women, 4 laptops, 4 failed marriages, all converging on a single administrative assistant. So, Jenna said, leaning back, they're all in it. Dale, Trevor, Marcus, and Eric, our husbands, our perfect Stonebridge estates. Provider husbands, they formed a cheating carpool. It's more than that, I said, my mind racing, connecting the data points. They're sharing resources. They're sharing alibis. They're sharing her. This is where it stops being just sad, Lydia said, her lawyer voice taking over the room. She stood up and began to pace, just a few steps back and forth. Listen to me. If it's just infidelity, it's a moral problem. It's a personal tragedy. You go to a divorce attorney, you fight over the house, you cry. It's awful. That's one path. She stopped pacing and pointed at my laptop. But this is a legal problem. This is a corporate compliance problem. They are using corporate funds to facilitate these affairs. That's fraud. They are creating an environment of, let's call it, advanced sexual harassment. Harper Lane is Dale's subordinate. Who knows who Marcus's mentee is? This is a massive, massive liability for their employers. She looked at each of us. They haven't just broken our hearts. They've broken company policy, and probably the law. A moral failing is subjective. A fraudulent expense report is a hard number. A new, cold, and incredibly powerful feeling began to dawn on me. It was the thrill of a complex problem with a clear, achievable solution. This was not just a personal crisis. This was an operations management failure, and I was very, very good at fixing those. The email Naomi found, I said, the men of the Heartland Leadership Council, and Trevor's invite said, Leadership Circle Fall Retreat. What if it's the same thing? Jenna, Naomi said, turning. You're the finance ghoul. Can you find them? What, like, on the internet? Jenna scoffed. Please. She turned to her own laptop. We watched as she opened a browser, her fingers flying. Amateurs, she muttered. If you're going to commit a conspiracy, you don't use a traceable email for your dumbass club. She searched for men of the Heartland Leadership Council. Nothing. Leadership Circle? Too generic. Wait, she said. Lydia, what's Eric's company? Aurora Gate Systems. And Dale's Harbor Lane Capital. Marcus is Northline Freight Works. Trevor is from Summit Midwest. Jenna typed in a new URL, ironharborcircle.com. The page is loaded. It was a password-protected portal. The login screen was a sleek, masculine gray and black, with a logo of 2 stylized eagles. The tagline, in a sharp serif font, read, A Safe Harbor for Men of Stature. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, Naomi breathed. A safe harbor, Lydia repeated, her voice laced with acid. How quaint. Password, Jenna said, her fingers poised over the keyboard. It's always something stupid and egotistical. What's Marcus's dog's name? He doesn't have a dog. He hates dogs. Okay, his golf handicap. 18, Jenna typed. Log leader 18. Ironman 2024. Marcus Cole King. All denied. Wait, I said. I looked at the URL. Iron Harbor. Dale works at Harbor Lane. It's a pun on his company. And Marcus's laptop password, Jenna said, her eyes lighting up. The one for the actual laptop, the one he thinks I don't know. She typed, Master of my fate. Access granted. We all leaned in. The website was not a simple page. It was a full-blown private network. There was a calendar for events, the Linden Suites Thursdays. There was a members directory with photos of Dale, Trevor, Marcus, Eric, and 6 other men I did not recognize. There was a philosophy page talking about traditional masculine virtues and the burden of leadership. And then Jenna clicked on the Documents tab. There was only one file, Rulebook v3.pdf. Jenna downloaded it. She opened it. My heart stopped. It was not just a list of names. It was a manual, a how-to guide for industrial-strength deception, written with the bland, cheerful competency of a corporate HR document. It was 20 pages long. There was a section on alibi cohesion. Always ensure your stated leadership event or retreat story is identical to your circle brothers. Consistency is security. There was a section on financial discretion. Utilize the approved vendor list. See Appendix A for all entertainment. Route personal expenses through pre-approved, non-suspicious channels. Never use a joint account for circle activities. Dale, apparently, had failed that module. There was a section on digital security. Never text from your primary number. Utilize encrypted apps. Maintain a separate work device if possible. Remember, plausible deniability is your first line of defense. I felt a wave of nausea so profound I had to grip the edge of the table. This was not a mistake. This was not a midlife crisis. This was a system. They had meetings. They had a rule book. They had best practices for lying to us. The pain I felt was not the hot, sharp pain of betrayal. It was the cold, hollow ache of realizing I was not married to a man, but to a committee. I looked up. Naomi looked like she was going to be sick. Lydia's face was white with a rage so pure it was almost beautiful. Jenna was just staring at the screen, her expression unreadable. They built a system, I said, my voice barely a whisper. They built a whole operational infrastructure to cheat on us. Jenna closed the PDF. She turned her laptop around to face us. So, she said, her voice crisp and clear, we're not going to confront them. We're not going to go to couples therapy. We're not going to have a big, tearful fight in the kitchen. Lydia nodded, catching her drift. No, we're not going to attack the individuals. Naomi looked up, the spark returning to her eyes. We're going to attack the infrastructure. I looked at the three women at my table, the lawyer, the marketer, the financial analyst, and me. The operations manager. They built a safe harbor, I said, the coldness in my chest finally solidifying, hardening into something useful. We're going to burn it. We're going to burn the whole thing, and everyone in it, right down to the pilings. That night, I went back to my laptop. The folder Project Dale Nichols felt small, inadequate, like a budget proposal for a project that had just been revealed as a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure build. This was not a domestic dispute. This was a conspiracy. I right-clicked on the folder. I selected Rename. My fingers typed Operation Fogged Windows. It was no longer my personal project. It was a joint venture. The Wives Committee convened the next afternoon at a crowded, noisy Starbucks in the adjacent suburb, the kind of place with terrible acoustics, perfect for a conversation you did not want overheard. We huddled around a small table, 4 women in athleisure, looking like any other suburban book club, but with the combined energy of a hostile audit team. We divided the labor. It was a natural, unspoken process, each of us gravitating to the role our professional lives had trained us for. I, Olivia, was the project manager and central data hub. My job was to be the repository for all incoming intelligence. I would take the disparate pieces of data and integrate them. I would build the master timeline, the network maps, and the organizational charts of this shadow company. Naomi, with her marketing savvy and social media expertise, became our head of surveillance and field operations. She already had the location tracker on Trevor. Her new assignment was to get eyes on the ground, time-stamped photos, license plates, visual confirmation of assets and personnel. Jenna, our financial advisor, was appointed forensic accountant. Her mission was simple: follow the money. She would dig into corporate card abuse, trace Venmo transactions, search for shell corporations, and find the hidden slush funds. Lydia, our defense attorney, was our legal counsel and chief risk officer. She would build the actual case, identifying the specific corporate policies, HR violations, and state laws being broken. She would also begin the process of discreetly identifying and opening back channels to the legal and compliance departments of their respective companies. Okay, I said, taking a sip of my lukewarm latte. Phase 1 is discovery. We don't move until we have the complete picture. We are in data collection mode only. Agreed. 3 heads nodded. The committee was in session. I went back to my master timeline V1 and expanded it. At Northline, I build complex workflow diagrams that track a product from conception to market, detailing every human touchpoint, financial transaction, and potential bottleneck. I applied the same logic here. I created 4 color-coded swim lanes on the screen: Dale Harbor Lane blue, Trevor Summit green, Marcus Northline red, Eric Aurora Gate yellow. I began populating the master timeline with everything we knew: the recurring every other Thursday meetings, the dinners at the Lantern Room, the alibis, Dale's Chicago trips, Trevor's road shows, Marcus's mentorship dinners, Eric's innovation retreats. A chilling pattern emerged. They did not just happen to overlap, they were interlocked. On October 16th, Dale was in Chicago. That same night, Marcus was mentoring at the Lantern Room. On October 30th, Trevor was at the leadership seminar that Dale had also supposedly attended. They were not just sharing alibis, they were being each other's alibis. The discovery started to come in fast. We communicated through a new, encrypted messaging app, a new channel for Operation Fogged Windows. The first new data point came from me. While auditing our joint accounts, the ones Dale assumed I only glanced at to pay the mortgage, I found a new anomaly. It was not a hotel or a restaurant. It was a recurring Venmo transfer, $500, on the 15th of every single month, for the last 4 months. The recipient, Kelsey Rhodes. The note: every single time, mentorship bonus. I searched my memory. Kelsey Rhodes. Dale had mentioned her exactly once, months ago. Poor kid, he'd said, shaking his head after a work-from-home day. New contractor in data analytics, bright, but just sloppy, totally overwhelmed. $500 a month. That was a significant, untaxed bonus for a sloppy contract employee he barely knew. I added Kelsey's name to the network map. A new node connected to Dale. Under the heading, Potential Salaried Liability. The next ping came from Naomi. She had spent a Thursday afternoon parked in a public garage across from the Linden Suites, a telephoto lens on her high-end DSLR. I sat for 3 hours. She texted the group, pretended to be on a work call. Got him. She sent the photos. It was Trevor, exiting the hotel lobby, unmistakable in his terrible golf-branded puffer vest. But the woman with him was not the short, dark-haired Harper Lane I had described. This woman was tall, blonde, and wearing a very expensive-looking trench coat. IDing her now. Naomi's next text read, an hour later. Got her. Bree Ellis, Senior Marketing Manager at Aurora Gate Systems. Lydia's reply was instant. That's Eric's company. She's in his division. My fingers flew. So Trevor is sleeping with Eric's colleague, while Eric and Dale are using Dale's assistant. Naomi's response, it's not an affair, it's a key party, but with mistresses. Then Jenna dropped her bomb. She had been quiet for 2 days, and now we knew why. She had hit a wall with Marcus's personal spending. He's too clean, she wrote. No one is this clean. It means there's a second bucket. She had started searching public-facing state business registries. She found it. North State Mentorship Group, LLC, filed 6 months ago. The registered agent Marcus Cole. The mailing address, a mailbox at a UPS store. Jenna, through methods she declined to document, had gained access to the LLC's formation documents and its newly opened bank account. It's a slush fund, she reported in the group chat. He's been funding it with consulting fees from a vendor at his logistics company. He's taking kickbacks. The account was used to pay for short-term luxury apartment rentals, weekend trips, and high-end jewelry. But here's the part that should concern us, she wrote. He needed a co-signer to open the LLC. He listed a managing partner. She sent us a scan of the signature page. There, next to Marcus's sloppy signature, was a clean, precise one, Jenna R. Alvarez. He forged my signature, she wrote. He used my name, my credit, and my professional reputation to open a shell corporation to pay for his side pieces. Lydia's reply was simple. That's not infidelity, that's wire fraud. And identity theft. We've got him. Lydia's own discovery came from her printer's hard drive. Eric is a creature of habit, she told us. He's also an idiot. He had printed another document from his work computer, a lease agreement. It was a draft, but a very detailed one, for a 3,000 square foot furnished loft in the Riverfront Lofts building, a classic, high-ceilinged, exposed brick party pad. The lessee was not an individual. The lessee was listed as the Iron Harbor Circle, LLC, and the co-signers on the final page, Dale Nichols, Trevor Hayes, Marcus Cole, Eric Dalton. They're upgrading, I said aloud to my empty office. They're moving from hotel rooms to a permanent headquarters. The final, clarifying piece came from me. I went back to the Iron Harbor website Jenna had discovered. I was looking for email trails, keywords, anything. I found a link to an archived email chain in Dale's sent folder that he had, in his arrogance, forgotten to delete. The email was from Harper Lane, but she was not writing as Dale's subordinate. She was writing as the coordinator of the circle. The email, sent to Dale, Trevor, Marcus, Eric, and the other members, was a logistics update. Subject Q4 retreat bookings update. The email was chilling in its corporate efficiency. It detailed a new, streamlined booking process for the Linden Suites. Complete with a corporate rate she had personally negotiated, it had an update on the Riverfront Loft lease. Lydia, Eric's wife, has not signed off on the docs yet. Dale had apparently replied. He will. Harper wrote back. She was not a simple mistress. She was not a victim. She was the project manager. She was me. She was the other Olivia, running the entire administrative backbone of their shadow lives. And then I saw the last item on her agenda. Item 4, Stress Management Retreat. As requested. I have confirmed Tori Madden for the weekend of the 12th. Her yoga and private meditation sessions were a big hit last time, so please send your RSVPs and payments to the North State LLC account. Tori Madden. I knew that name. She was a high-end yoga and corporate wellness instructor. I closed my laptop. I had all the pieces. This was not a series of scattered, sad affairs. This was a fully integrated, multi-layered ecosystem. It had finance Jenna's Shell LLC, real estate, Lydia's Loft, and HR Harper, the coordinator. It had salaried employees Kelsey, crossover partners Bree, and even external vendors for wellness Tori. They had not just built a safe harbor, they had built a corporation. And I realized, with a cold, terrifying clarity, that you do not stop a corporation by appealing to its morals. You stop it by staging a hostile takeover, dismantling its operations, and liquidating its assets. We met again, this time at Pine Cole, a coffee shop so loud and industrial you could confess to a felony at your table, and the barista would just call out the wrong name for a latte. It was perfect. We took our lattes to a corner booth, the laptops open, our voices low. This time, Lydia led. She had traded her legal pad for a crisp, organized binder. I have spent the last 48 hours reviewing precedent and state law, she began, her voice devoid of all emotion. She sounded like she was briefing a client on a DUI. Here is our situation. If we pursue this as a matter of infidelity, it is, as I said, messy, it is emotional. We go to court. We present evidence of adultery. In a no-fault state like Minnesota, the judge will sigh, split the marital assets 50-50, and tell us all to go to therapy. We will be financially and emotionally drained, and they will walk away merely inconvenienced. She paused, taking a small, precise sip of her coffee. However, she continued, we are not in a simple infidelity situation. She tapped Jenna's laptop. We are in a criminal and civil liability situation. We have identity theft. We have wire fraud via the North State LLC. We have a conspiracy to defraud their employers. We have documented, flagrant violations of corporate conduct, and we have textbook cases of sexual harassment and coercion. Her eyes, sharp and intense, met each of us. A moral failing is private. But a fraudulent expense report is a public document. If we use that, she said, we do not face a divorce attorney. We face their company's general counsel, and they will not be inconvenienced. They will be fired, they will be investigated, and they will be radioactive. The path forward suddenly became very clear. We were upgrading. This was no longer a personal complaint. It was a white-collar criminal investigation. They're even sloppier than that, Jenna said. Jumping in, she pulled up a new spreadsheet. The North State LLC was for the big, bespoke purchases, the loft, the yoga instructor, for the day-to-day. They were just using their corporate Amex cards. She showed us the screen. It was a cross-reference timeline. There were Dale's, Eric's, Trevor's, and Marcus's corporate expenses, all for the same nights, all at the same places, the Lantern Room, the Nightline Lounge, the Linden Suites. And look at the expense notes, Jenna said, her voice filled with contempt. Every single one, client entertainment, client development, hosting Chicago team. They were charging their midweek hotel trysts to their employers. Naomi leaned in. I pulled Trevor's location data from the app. For every night, Jenna flagged. Guess what no Chicago team was within a 10-mile radius? It was just them, their girlfriends, and apparently a lot of very expensive steak. And I said, my voice sounding flat, read their employee handbooks. I had spent the previous night on the public-facing investors' pages of all 4 companies, finding the Code of Conduct PDFs, Harbor Lane, Aurora Gate, Northline Freight Works, Summit Midwest. They all have explicit zero-tolerance policies regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. They all define creating a hostile work environment and abuse of authority. I ticked off the names on my fingers. Harper Lane is Dale's subordinate. Kelsey Rhodes is a contractor in his division. Bry Ellis is a marketing manager in Eric's. This is not a messy love quadrangle. This is a clear-cut, career-ending HR violation for at least 3 of them. They are a walking lawsuit. A silence settled on the table. We were no longer wives. We were prosecutors. I had to be sure. My data, so far, was digital. I needed to connect it to the physical world. I needed to see it, just once, with my own eyes. So I did. That Thursday, I told Dale I was going to a late-night spin class. Instead, I drove downtown and parked in a dark garage across the street from the Linden Suites. I sat in my car for 2 hours. I did not feel nervous. I did not feel sad. I felt like a field agent confirming a target. At 10:15 p.m., the main glass doors of the hotel opened. Dale walked out. He was laughing, his head tilted back. Beside him, so close her shoulder brushed his arm, was Harper Lane. She was smiling up at him, her face bright in the streetlight. They were not sneaking. They were not ashamed. They looked happy. As they reached the sidewalk, he put his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of casual, familiar ownership. He guided her toward the valet stand. I felt nothing. The woman who had cried in her car, the woman who had felt the world collapse in that garage, was gone. In her place was an operations manager observing a critical failure. This was not the man I married. This was a liability. I raised my phone. I turned on the video. I filmed for 10 seconds. The footage is crystal clear. His face, her face, his hand on her back, the bright, unmistakable sign of the Linden Suites glowing above them. I saved the file to my Operation Fogged Windows folder. I drove home. The intelligence kept pouring in. Naomi, having gained full access to the Iron Harbor email account via Jenna, had been monitoring their sent folder. "You're not going to believe this," she texted the group. "Trevor is trying to get private lessons from the yoga instructor." She forwarded the email chain. It was from Trevor's Iron Harbor account to Tori Madden, the wellness coach. He was referencing the great session at the last retreat and asking if she did private one-on-one sessions to help him fully de-stress. His sign-off: "Payment is no object. We can run it through the usual North State account." He is literally trying to pay for a prostitute with a fraudulent LLC. Lydia texted back, "This is a gift. Amid all this, one name kept bothering me: Kelsey Rhodes, the $500 mentorship bonus from Dale. Harper was a co-conspirator. Bree Ellis was a colleague from another company. But Kelsey was a contractor, in his division, receiving monthly cash payments. I did not just search her name, I searched for her. I went onto social media. Her profiles were not locked. They were not filled with party photos or dinners at the Lantern Room. They were sad. Kelsey Rhodes was a single mother. Her profile picture was of her and a small boy, maybe 3 years old, at a public park. Her feed was filled with pictures of him, of her small, neat apartment, of articles about side hustles and getting by. Her captions were not flirtatious. They were tired. Just trying to make it all work. Sometimes you get stuck in a situation you did not choose, but you have to see it through for your family. This was not a co-conspirator. This was not Harper Lane, the COO of their affair. This was a low-level, vulnerable contract employee, a single mother, being paid $500 a month, off the books, by a senior vice president. This was not an affair. This was coercion. This was a man leveraging his power and his money over someone who had none. I brought this to the group. This, I said, changes things. We can't just burn the whole system down. There are people in the building who are not part of the fire. We met at my house, the war room table now covered in binders. Lydia stood up. Okay, we have the complete case. We can prove fraud, identity theft, coercion, conspiracy, and systematic corporate policy violations. Now, we have a choice. Path. A scorched earth. She laid it out. We package everything. We send an anonymous, comprehensive file to the general counsel and the CEO of all 4 companies. We sent it to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. We send it to a class action lawyer. We burn them to the ground. They will be fired by noon. They will be investigated. Their names will be ruined forever. It will be a nuclear winter. She paused. Path B, the strategic exit. We do not go public. We go private. We use this dossier as a nuclear warhead, but we keep our finger on the button. We force them to a table. We dictate the terms of the divorce. We get the houses. We get the 401ks. We get permanent, binding non-disclosure agreements. We get everything. She looked at me. And we include provisions in our agreements to protect Kelsey. The room was silent. Scorched earth felt good. It felt righteous, but the strategic exit was efficient. It was clean. It was, in its own way, colder. I looked at Jenna. I looked at Naomi. No, I said, my voice quiet. Not A or B. We are a hybrid. They looked at me. We are not just going to send an anonymous email, I said. That is a coward's move, and we are not just going to do this in a quiet lawyer's office. They built this system in the dark. We are going to expose it to the light. We are going to create a stage, a formal proceeding. We will have the lawyers and the HR reps and the husbands all in one place at one time. We will present the case, just once. We will give them one, and only one, chance to sign the agreements Lydia drafts. They will be held accountable, not just by us, but by the very systems they thought they controlled. That's beautiful, Olivia, Naomi said. But how in the hell do we get all of them, plus their HR departments, in one room, at the same time, without them running for the hills? It was a good question, a critical logistical flaw. And then, Naomi's eyes went wide. She looked at Jenna. Wait, you're still on the Iron Harbor website, right? Duh, Jenna said. Go to the calendar, Naomi said, her voice electric. The one from Trevor's email, the Leadership Circle Fall Retreat. What was the full title? Jenna clicked. She scrolled, and she read the title aloud. The Iron Harbor Circle, she read. Annual Leadership and Couples Retreat. Naomi looked at me, a smile spreading across her face that was terrifying and brilliant. They're planning a retreat, for couples, to strengthen their marriages, I smiled back. Well, I said, they've already booked the venue. We'll just be adjusting the agenda. Jenna made the call. It turned out she had a friend from college, a man named Caleb Monroe, who was now the general manager of Silver Pines Lodge. It was a high-end corporate retreat center in Wisconsin, all soaring pine beams and massive stone fireplaces, isolated, expensive, and surrounded by 200 acres of dense forest. It was, in short, the perfect place for an execution. "Caleb, darling," we heard her say, her voice shifting into a smooth, friendly gear. "I have a pitch for you. I have a group of VPs, an executive-level leadership circle, and they want to do a last-minute couples weekend. Think Harbor of Growth, a couples and leadership intensive." She paused, listening. "Exactly. A breakthrough weekend. We'd need the full corporate package, the grand overlook conference room, all AV, total privacy, and Caleb. This is the key. They want it to feel intimate and secure, so we need your team to be discreet. Can you do that for me?" She listened again, then smiled. "I knew I could count on you." With Caleb on board and the venue secured, we moved to Phase 2, the invitation. We, which is to say, Jenna and Naomi, who had a flair for corporate speak, hijacked the Iron Harbor email account. They drafted the most obnoxious, buzzword-laden invitation I had ever seen. Subject announcing the Harbor of Growth, a couples leadership weekend circle brothers. In our quest for holistic success, we have identified a key growth area partner alignment. This Q4 we are launching our most groundbreaking initiative, yet an immersive, 3-day, 2-night couples retreat at the exclusive Silver Pines Lodge. This will be a weekend of profound connection, strategic alignment, and intimate breakthroughs. We have curated a series of workshops designed to optimize our core relationships for peak personal and professional performance. The email was CC'd to Dale, Trevor, Marcus, and Eric, and then came the hook, the linchpin of the entire operation. The capstone of our weekend will be Monday evening's keynote session, Radical Transparency, a Pathway to Invincible Partnership. Attendance with your partner for this session is mandatory. This is a safe, structured, and facilitated space to build the unshakable foundation our leadership demands. They had targeted the email perfectly. They had weaponized their own language against them. Optimize. Performance. Strategic. They had just turned their marriages into another KPI. The responses, forwarded to our secure chat, were almost instantaneous and utterly predictable. Dale sent me the email with a text. "Wow, they're finally getting serious about family. I think this is a great opportunity for us. Liv, let's do it." Naomi reported that Trevor had slapped her on the ass in the kitchen and said, "Looks like the circle is finally listening to me. Told them we needed to get the wives involved. You're welcome." Jenna and Lydia confirmed their husbands were in. Both Marcus and Eric, having apparently seen the email as a brilliant way to score points at home while planning a weekend that was, on paper, still all about them. They had taken the bait, all 4 of them. While they were busy congratulating themselves, the rest of us were in final prep. Lydia was in her element. She had already retained a shark of a divorce attorney, an old colleague of hers, who was now on standby. More importantly, Lydia had made a phone call. "I have a contact," she explained. "A friend of a friend, who is now senior legal counsel at Harbor Lane Capital. We spoke hypothetically. I explained a potential scenario involving executive misconduct and fraudulent billing. The legal counsel, it seemed, was very interested in this hypothetical scenario." "He's in," Lydia reported. "He and legal representatives from the other 3 companies will be on a secure video call. They have been invited to observe a mandatory executive sensitivity training module. They'll be piped into the conference room, unseen. As for our recording," she held up a finger, "we are in a one-party consent state for recording, but that's messy. Instead, Caleb will have a sign posted at the door. This session is being recorded for training and archival purposes. We will also have the facilitator, a woman I've hired. She's a former litigator, stated at the beginning. It's clean, it's admissible, it's airtight." My job was to build the weapon. I spent the next week in a state of focused, almost monastic concentration. I took all our data, Jenna's financial audits, Naomi's photos and location pings, Lydia's legal violations. My timelines and I forged them into a single, undeniable narrative. It was a PowerPoint presentation, the presentation of my life. I named the file Operation Fogged Windows Final. Slide 1. A title slide. Operation Fogged Windows, an Iron Harbor case study, against a plain black background. Slide 2. The network map, Dale, Trevor, Marcus, Eric, lines connecting them to the LLC, to the loft, to the Linden Suites. Slide 3. The rulebook via 3.pdf. Key phrases highlighted in blood red. Consistency is security. Never use a joint account. Slide 4. The timeline, the master spreadsheet, showing the perfect alignment of their alibis. Then, a section for each of them. Subject Dale Nichols, my video of him and Harper outside the Linden Suites, the screenshot of his Chicago text, the spreadsheet of his joint account and corporate card misuse, the Venmo payments to Kelsey Rhodes. Subject Trevor Hayes, Naomi's time-stamped photos, the location pings at the Linden Suites, the email to Tori Madden. Subject Marcus Cole, Jenna's forged signature, the North State LLC bank statements, the kickbacks. Subject Eric Dalton, the printer cash lease for the riverfront loft, the reservation for Bry Ellis. It was a 45-slide narrative of their downfall, and in a secure, password-protected folder on my desktop, I created one final, single slide, a slide I did not share with the others. It was just a title, in white text. Harper Lane, the others, a cost-benefit analysis. This one, I decided, was for me, a final, tactical reserve, the last bullet in the gun. While I was building the case, Naomi was handling human resources. She found Kelsey Rhodes's personal, non-work email. She sent her a message. It was a masterpiece of empathy and strategy. She did not threaten. She did not accuse. She simply wrote, "Kelsey, you do not know me, but I am the wife of one of the men who runs the Iron Harbor Circle. I am attaching a photo. This photo was taken last week. You may recognize the man in the center. His name is Dale Nichols. He is my neighbor. He is also a married man. His wife is a friend of mine. I don't know your situation, but I have a very strong feeling you are being used in a system that is much bigger and much uglier than you know. We are a group of women who are a part of this system, and we are getting out. We are creating a safe, legal, and final exit strategy. If you are, in any way, a victim in this, you are not alone, and we can protect you. But we need to know the truth. Do you want a way out?" She attached the photo. My photo. The one of Dale and Harper outside the Linden Suites. It took Kelsey 3 days to reply, 3 agonizing days of silence. Then, a one-word email appeared in Naomi's inbox. Yes. The next day, after a secure, encrypted call, Kelsey confirmed everything. She was terrified. She was a single mother. Dale had told her he was legally separated, in the middle of a messy divorce. He had offered her the $500 a month as a consulting fee to help him manage some personal accounts, a story that quickly morphed into him needing personal support. She was trapped, scared of losing her job, scared of him. She agreed to testify, to be on a video call, to tell her story. Her one condition: her face would be blacked out, her voice digitally altered. Lydia and I agreed instantly. "She's not a co-conspirator," I said. "She's a witness and a victim." The night before we were due to drive to Silver Pines, I packed. Dale was in the shower, humming, excited for his couples weekend. I laid out my clothes on our bed. I did not pack the silk lingerie I had bought for our anniversary last year. I did not pack the cozy sweaters he liked. I packed a pair of severe black trousers, a white silk shell, and my best, sharpest, most powerful black blazer, the one I wore when I was pitching a multi-million-dollar account. We were driving up separately. As the retreat started at different times, I told Dale I had an early client meeting and would meet him there. I checked into a generic motel an hour away from the lodge. I stood in the dim fluorescent light of the motel bathroom, staring at my own reflection. I saw the woman in the black suit. I saw the tiredness in her eyes. But underneath it, I saw the cold, hard glint of polished steel. I was not a wife anymore. I was not a victim. I was not even a project manager. I was an intelligent executioner. And I was about to deliver a very well-researched, data-driven, and entirely justified sentence. I arrived at Silver Pines Lodge just before noon on Sunday. It was exactly as advertised, a cathedral of rustic, expensive comfort. A massive stone fireplace dominated the lobby, crackling warmly. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, light snow was falling, dusting the enormous pine trees. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It was the most dishonest place I had ever been. Dale pulled up an hour after me, his truck still smelling faintly of the garage. He was in full fresh start mode. He kissed me, a long, proprietary kiss in the lobby. "I'm so glad we're doing this. Liv," he murmured, his arm draped over my shoulder. This is what we've needed, a real new beginning." I smiled, a tight, controlled expression I had perfected. The others were a traveling circus. Trevor Hayes arrived laughing, booming Naomi's name across the lobby, acting like a man who had not been tracked via satellite for 3 months. Marcus and Eric checked in together, all brotherhood and backslapping, looking like the pillars of their respective communities. Jenna and Lydia stood beside them, playing the parts of supportive, slightly harried wives, just happy to get away for a weekend. The first day was a blur of calculated nonsense. The facilitator Lydia had hired, a crisp woman named Dr. Eris, was brilliant. She had been briefed to keep it vague, positive, and entirely superficial. We sat in a conference room with a view of the snowy woods. We did vision boarding. We used colored markers to map our shared values. We talked about communication pathways. It was excruciating. I sat next to Dale, our knees almost touching. I watched him earnestly write trust and family on his poster board. I watched Marcus talk about legacy. I watched Eric nod seriously when Dr. Eris mentioned unwavering commitment. Jenna, Naomi, Lydia, and I played our parts. We were the wives trying to save our marriages. We asked thoughtful questions. We nodded. We smiled. We acted as if this was the most profound experience of our lives, all while the digital guillotine, my PowerPoint presentation, was loaded and ready on my encrypted hard drive. That night, the performance became almost too much. In our private room, which, of course, had its own fireplace and a king-sized bed, Dale was suffocatingly affectionate. He came out of the shower, wrapping a towel around his waist, his skin damp. "This is nice, isn't it?" he said. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I was at the desk, pretending to check work email. "The room is lovely," I said. He was quiet. Then he said, "Liv." I turned. His face was a mask of careful, practiced sincerity. I know things have been a little distant lately, between us, with my work stress, and I just want to be more honest with you, about everything." He reached out and took my hand. His skin was warm, and then I saw it. A single, perfect tear welling in the corner of his eye. He let it track down his cheek. "I just don't want to lose this," he whispered. You, for one horrifying second, I almost believed him. My chest tightened, a sharp, familiar ache. This was the man I had met in a sticky-floored bar in Kansas, the one who made me laugh so hard I could not breathe. This was the man who had held my hand when my mother died. This was the man I had eaten instant ramen with on a cardboard box table in our first tiny apartment, dreaming about a life that looked exactly like the one we now had. He had been my home, my hand, the one he was holding, almost squeezed back. I almost said, "We can fix this." I almost threw the laptop, the project, the entire operation into the goddamn fireplace. I pulled my hand away. "I'm tired," I said, my voice colder than I intended. I'm going to take a shower. I locked the bathroom door. I turned on the water. Hot and loud. I leaned against the cold tile, breathing. My phone buzzed. A text in the Operation Fogged Windows chat. It was from Jenna. Emergency. My bathroom. Now. I told Dale I was getting ice. I slipped out. Jenna's room was 2 doors down. I knocked. She opened it instantly, her face pale. She pointed toward her own bathroom. Naomi was in there, sitting on the edge of the tub, her face blotchy, tears streaming silently. She was gulping in air, trying not to make a sound. Naomi whispered, her body shaking. He brought me hot chocolate, from the bar. He remembered I liked it with extra whipped cream. The whole way up here. He held my hand. He's being Trevor. Good Trevor. She looked up at me and Jenna, her eyes wide with panic and a terrible, desperate hope. If he kneels down, she choked out. If he kneels down right now and apologizes, do I forgive him? Jenna, do I still do it? Jenna stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. Her face was hard. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, You have every right to forgive him. Naomi, that's your choice. Naomi's face started to light up. But, Jenna continued, her voice flat, forgiving him is not the same as staying in the system he built. Forgiving him doesn't mean you have to co-sign the next lie. Naomi's hope died. She just nodded, the tears starting again, and wiped her nose. We went back to my room. Lydia was there. She had been getting a drink at the bar. My contact at Harbor Lane just texted, Lydia said, her voice a low monotone. She showed us her phone. The message was from the senior legal counsel. We are standing by for the 8 p.m. call. I have looped in counterparts at the other firms. We trust this is a legitimate use of our time. The weight of it landed on me. This was not just a marriage ending. This was not just revenge. We were about to detonate the careers of 4 men. We were about to involve corporate legal teams, investigations, and potentially end the jobs of people like Kelsey, who were just collateral damage. Was this right? Was it proportional? I must have looked uncertain. Lydia put her hand on my arm. They did this. Olivia, not us. I went back to my room. Dale was asleep, snoring softly. I sat in the armchair, opened my laptop, and turned the screen brightness all the way down. I opened the presentation. I clicked through the slides, the LLC, the hotel bills, the lies. Then I stopped. I stopped on the first piece of evidence I ever had, the photo that had started it all, the grainy, green-lit, time-stamped security camera still from the Brookfield Plaza garage. The fogged windows, the shadow of Dale leaning toward Harper. I stared at it. I forced myself to remember, not the good times in Kansas. I forced myself to remember that exact moment, the feeling of the steering wheel under my cold hands, the way my lungs had seized, the sudden, sickening collapse in my chest, the feeling of the world tilting off its axis. He chose to do that. He chose it again at the Linden Suites, and again at Riverside Row. He chose it when he lied about Chicago. He chose it when he faked a tear 30 minutes ago in this room. He had chosen to hurt me, casually, systematically, dozens of times. I was choosing to hurt him once, with a detailed plan, a verified budget, and a clear set of deliverables. I closed the laptop. My resolve was set. Just as I was closing my eyes, my phone buzzed one last time. It was Lydia. I didn't just get a text at the bar, she wrote. I got this. She sent an audio file. I put in my headphones. I heard the clink of glasses, the low murmur of the lodge bar, and then I heard Eric Dalton's voice, low and intimate, clearly talking on his phone. I know, baby, he was whispering. This whole retreat thing is a joke. Just be patient. I promise. As soon as this is over, I'm ending it. I'm ending everything with her. It's always been you. I just have to know how to handle her gently. He was not remorseful. He was not trying to fix his marriage. He was managing his mistress. He was playing the savior. Lydia's follow-up text. He's not sorry. He's just calculating. We are doing the right thing. Do not go soft. I did not go soft. At midnight, the four of us met in the Grand Overlook conference room. It was empty, dark, and cold. Caleb, Jenna's friend, had left the AV unlocked for us. I plugged my laptop into the main system. The projector whirred to life. Slide 1 your Operation Fogged Windows. I tested the video link for the HR call. I tested the audio for Kelsey's testimony. I checked the hidden microphone Lydia had set up for the facilitator. Everything was ready. We stood in the dark for a moment. 4 wives, 4 conspirators. Jenna checked her watch. 18 hours, she said. We looked at each other. The fear was real. So was the pain. We were about to jump off a cliff, and we were taking everyone we had ever loved with us, but we were doing it together. Tomorrow was the day. There was no going back. Monday was a masterpiece of grotesque normalcy. Dr. Aris, our hired facilitator, guided us through the day's agenda with a bright, terrifying cheerfulness. We did team-building exercises. We were literally forced to do a trust fall, which I performed with Dale. My hands clinically placed on his back as he fell into my arms. The man who was trusting me, I held his weight. It felt like nothing. We did a group exercise sharing our 5-year goals on large sticky pads. Dale wrote, "Reinvest in us and achieve a new professional benchmark." I wrote, "Operational integrity and strategic restructuring." He smiled, thinking we were aligned. We ate a buffet lunch, all steam table chicken and optimistic pasta salad. We smiled at each other, Jenna and Marcus, Lydia and Eric, Naomi and Trevor, Dale and me. We were the couples of the year. 4 portraits of suburban success. After lunch, Trevor insisted on a group photo. For the Iron Harbor archives, he'd boomed. We all stood on a scenic overlook, the snow-covered pines framing us. We posed, we put our arms around each other. We looked like a goddamn advertisement for expensive winter coats and marital bliss. Naomi's hand was on Trevor's shoulder. My hand was on Dale's waist. Jenna's smile was bright. Lydia's was serene. I saw the photo later. We looked happy. We looked invincible. It was the most dishonest picture I have ever seen. At 4 p.m., the final calendar notification was pushed to all our phones. Subject Mandatory Session 7, Radical Transparency Time, 7:30 p.m., 9:00 p.m. Location, Grand Overlook Conference Room Note. This will be a fully facilitated session. As this is a capstone event, the session will be recorded to serve archival and training purposes for the Iron Harbor Circle. The trap was set. The bait was out. The recording, we had now legally informed them, was in progress. At 7:25 p.m., we all began to file in. The room was warm. Caleb, Jenna's friend, had done his job perfectly. The lights were dimmed to a soft, intimate glow. A fire was crackling in the room's other massive stone fireplace. The chairs were arranged in a comfortable semicircle. At the front of the room, the large projector screen was dark. A laptop mine was connected. Waiting. I saw the sign as we walked in, posted on a discreet brass stand by the door. Notice. This session is being recorded for training and archival purposes. Dale, naturally, did not even see it. He put his hand on my back, guiding me in. "All right," he whispered, full of conspiratorial excitement. "Let's get radically transparent. I'm all for it." He seemed to believe this was some kind of advanced therapy, a final step to getting the good Olivia back. Trevor, predictably, was a buffoon. He clapped Marcus on the back. "Okay, boys. Confession time. Hope they don't ask us to admit everything." He laughed, a loud braying sound. Naomi, walking beside him, did not even flinch. Marcus and Eric sat down together, side by side, a united front. Their Circle Brothers bond was on full display. They looked comfortable, relaxed, like men who owned any room they walked into. Jenna and Lydia sat. Naomi sat. I sat. We formed a half moon. Dr. Aris was not here. It was just us. "Where's the facilitator?" Eric asked, looking at his watch. She'll be here, Lydia said, her voice smooth. Naomi stood up, walked to the heavy oak doors, and pushed them closed. There was a solid, definitive thud. I heard the faint, metallic click as Caleb, waiting outside, engaged the external security lock, just as Lydia had instructed. Not a deadbolt, just a conference in session lock. It would hold them for a minute. We only needed 30 seconds. All eyes turned to me. I had remained standing. I was at the head of the room, next to my laptop, as if I were about to give a presentation. I smiled. The same, efficient, in-control smile I had used to close the Rivington account. "Good evening, everyone," I said. My voice was amplified just slightly by the room's high-tech microphone system. It sounded crisp and clear. "Thank you for being here for our final, and most important, session." The men were still smiling. Dale looked proud, as if I were his performing wife. "We're going to have that session on radical transparency," I continued, my voice steady. "But we're going to dispense with the brochure version. We're not here to talk about our feelings. We're here to review the data." The smiles wavered. Just a little. Confusion. This was not on the agenda. "Olivia, what?" Dale started, his supportive husband voice on. I did not look at him. I looked at my laptop. I pressed the spacebar. The projector whirred to life. The massive screen, 10 feet tall, lit up the room. It was not a welcome slide. It was not a picture of a sunset. Against a stark black background, in white, sans serif font, were 4 words. Operation Fogged Windows, an Iron Harbor case study. And below the text, I had inserted the image, the one from the garage, the grainy, green-lit security cam footage, the back of Dale's truck, the windows, thick with steam, the faint, visible smear of a handprint on the glass. The change in the room was not a sound. It was a pressure drop. It was the complete, instantaneous sucking of all oxygen, all warmth, all humor, from the air. I saw Dale's head snap toward the screen. I saw his body go rigid, as if he had been tasered. His smile did not fade. It died. It was a mask dropping, and there was nothing behind it. He turned, his eyes wide and unblinking, to me, Trevor, who had been slouched, shot the bolt upright, his mouth opened. He looked at the screen, then at Naomi, and he saw her face. He saw the cold, dead stillness of her expression, and the blood drained from his face. Marcus and Eric, the 2 brothers, looked at each other. Their "what the hell is this" expressions instantly morphing into something else. Something cornered, their defensive instincts, honed in boardrooms, kicked in. They were not scared, not yet. They were angry. "What is this?" Marcus demanded, his voice sharp. "Olivia, what is this? Is this a joke?" "Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation," I said calmly. "You can't be serious," Eric said, standing up. "We're not doing this. Whatever this ambush is," he pointed at Lydia. "We're leaving." He walked toward the door. Marcus followed. Eric grabbed the handle. He pulled. It did not budge. He pulled again. Harder. "It's locked," he said, his voice a low growl. Turning back to us. "Lydia, you locked the door." "It's for our privacy," Lydia said. Standing up, she was now in her element. The courtroom. "Please, Eric, sit down. You'll want to hear this. Because this session," she said, her voice cutting through the panic, "is not just for us." She gestured to the side monitor, the one that had been dark. It flickered to life. "This evening's session," Lydia announced, her voice resonating with cold, legal precision, "is being attended, anonymously, by representatives from the legal and human resources departments of your employers." The screen lit up. It showed 4 black squares, like a Zoom call. Each square had a name. Each square had a logo. Harbor Lane Capital Group, Michael Shaw, General Counsel, Aurora Gate Systems, Anika Patel, Head of HR Compliance, Northline Freight Works, David Chen, Legal, Summit Midwest Distribution. Sarah Jenkins. VP, Human Resources. Their cameras were off. Their microphones were off. But they were there. They were listening. We have invited them to observe, Lydia continued, what we believe is a critical failure in corporate governance, fraud, and executive-level misconduct. They are here as a courtesy, before we proceed. Dale was no longer looking at me. He was staring at the name Michael Shaw, General Counsel. He was staring at it as if it were the head of a gorgon. His face was white. He was breathing, but in tiny, shallow sips. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had faked a tear in my room last night. I looked at the man who had lied about Chicago, who had paid Kelsey Rhodes, who had built a rulebook for betrayal. I picked up the remote for the presentation. I stepped forward, into the center of the light. Dale, I said. His head snapped back to me, his eyes full of a terror so pure it was almost satisfying. You said this, I said, my voice clear, steady, and loud enough for every microphone to catch. Was a safe harbor for men to be themselves. Tonight, we are simply helping you do that. We are here to make you completely and radically transparent. I clicked to the next slide. Subject Dale Nichols. And the video of him and Harper outside the Linden Suites filled the screen. My heart was a piston, hammering against my ribs. My hands were shaking, just slightly, but I gripped the presentation remote as if it were a weapon. My voice, when I spoke, was the calmest thing in the room. Subject Dale Nichols, I said. The main screen lit up. I did not start with the garage. I started with the lie. A screenshot of his "Stuck in Chicago" text, time-stamped, filled the left side. On the right, the security still from the Brookfield garage, time-stamped 2 minutes later. As we can see, I said, Mr. Nichols was experiencing a significant logistical discrepancy. Being in 2 cities simultaneously, this discrepancy, I clicked, and the photo of him and Harper outside the Linden Suites appeared, became a recurring pattern. I moved to finance, a color-coded spreadsheet. This, I said, pointing to the red column, is $5,200 in fraudulent charges to the Harbor Lane Capital corporate account, and this, I pointed to the blue column, is $4,600 in identical charges from our joint marital account. He was billing both his company and his wife for the same affair. Dale made a sound, a low, strangled gasp. Please hold all the questions, I said. Naomi? Naomi stood. Her voice was tight, vibrating with a rage I had not heard before. Subject Trevor Hayes. She displayed his location pings, a dense cluster over the Linden Suites, perfectly matching Dale's timeline. But Trevor, she said with a venomous smile, was smarter. He was generating invoices. She showed the screen. 2 receipts, side by side. One from his personal card. One, a forged itemized bill, submitted to Summit Midwest for client lodging. He was invoicing his company for his trysts, getting reimbursed, and turning a profit. He wasn't just cheating, he was scalping. She showed Harper's logistics email, the one booking 10 rooms for the seminar. They were reporting these as meeting rooms to corporate, while billing them as executive suites to us. Then, Jenna, she did not even stand. She leaned forward, her voice like ice. Subject Marcus Cole, the screen filled with the North State Mentorship Group LLC formation documents. Marcus took a different approach. He created a shell corporation. She zoomed in on the signature line. He forged my signature, leveraging my professional credentials as a financial advisor, to open the account. She showed the bank flow. He then approved kickbacks from a Northline Freightworks vendor, funneling over $60,000 into this LLC. That money, she clicked, was used for this. A video filled the screen. It was the riverfront loft. And, she clicked again, a $4,000 Cartier bracelet. Not for me. And that, Lydia said, finally taking the floor, is where we move from infidelity to felony. She began to pace, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. We have, at this table, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. We have identity theft. We have fraudulent expense reporting. We have clear-cut violations of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. She stopped and looked at the four pale men. And we have this, she motioned to me. I clicked the slide. A hostile work environment. A new screen appeared. A black silhouette. A high-pitched, digitized voice filled the room. It was Kelsey Rhodes. Mr. Nichols, he told me he was separated. The voice trembled. He said he was in a messy divorce, and his wife was trying to take everything. The voice described the mentorship bonus. I'm a single mother. $500 is a lot. He said it was for housing assistance, to help me get on my feet. The voice cracked. He had me sign some papers. I thought they were just mentorship forms. I didn't know I was taking money from his wife's account. I swear. I never knew he was still married. I stopped the recording. The silence in the room was absolute, suffocating. Dale had his head in his hands. Then, a new voice. A sharp, clear click of a microphone unmuting. It came from the speakers. It was Michael Shaw, the general counsel from Harbor Lane. We have heard enough, his voice boomed, cold and authoritative. We confirm this testimony, combined with the financial evidence, is sufficient to open an immediate, formal investigation, pending termination. We are simply waiting, he paused. On the preferred next steps from Mrs. Blackwell and the other complainants. Olivia, Dale finally shouted. He shot out of his chair, his face blotchy and desperate. Olivia, stop this. Please, we can talk about this. Privately. He lunged toward me, but stopped, as if hitting an invisible wall. I have a problem. Okay, it's a sickness. It's a midlife crisis. I love you. I love you. Don't do this. I looked at him, the man I had loved, the man who had wept fake tears in my room just last night. You don't have a problem, Dale, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through his panic. You have a choice. You had hundreds of them, and you chose me, and the truth, very, very few times. And now, Lydia said, stepping forward into the light, you have one final choice. She and Jenna moved as one. They walked to the table and placed a thick, spiral-bound document in front of each man. These are pre-filed divorce agreements, Lydia announced. They are non-negotiable. They are, however, fair. She detailed the terms. We got the houses. We got a 50% split of all verified marital assets, including their 401ks. We got everything we were entitled to. The conditions are simple, she continued. You sign. Tonight, you agree to cooperate fully with the internal investigations at your respective companies. You will not obstruct. You will not contest. You will not slander. She let that hang in the air. If you refuse, if you hesitate, if you so much as look like you're going to fight this, we send this entire dossier, she held up a flash drive, to the Star Tribune's financial desk and to a class action lawyer who is already on retainer. Your choice. You can't, Marcus Cole roared, standing up so fast his chair toppled. I'm not signing anything. This is entrapment. It's a violation of privacy. I'll sue every single one of you. Will you, Marcus? Jenna said. Her voice bored. She tapped her keyboard. One last slide. The screen changed. It was new footage, grainy, shot from a weird angle, as if from a bookshelf. It was the riverfront loft. Marcus was there, drunk, holding a glass, bragging to Trevor. I'm telling you, man, drunk, Marcus slurred. I just used her name on the LLC. Bypasses all the legal. She's so busy with her own spreadsheets. She'll never even know. It's perfect. A new voice. From the speakers, David Chen, from Northline Freight Works. His camera clicked on. He was a stern man, his face grim. Mr. Cole, he said. Thank you for the direct evidence. We strongly advise you to listen to your wife's legal counsel. We will be in touch tomorrow at 8 a.m. His camera clicked off. Marcus stared at the dark screen. He sank back into his chair, his body deflating. There was a sound, a scrape. Trevor Hayes. His face the color of wet cement. had pulled the document toward him. His hand was shaking. He fumbled for the pen. "Naomi, I'm so sorry," he whispered, as he signed. Naomi just stared, unblinking, at the far wall. Dale was last. He looked at me, his eyes pleading, desperate, searching for the girl from Kansas. She was not there. He understood. He understood, in that final, terrible moment, that whether he signed or not, I was gone. He picked up the pen. His hand was surprisingly steady. He signed. Marcus and Eric signed without another word. The sound of the pen scratching on the heavy bond paper was the only sound. 4 small, final clicks. My heart, which had been trying to beat its way out of my chest, suddenly slowed. It was not the joy I felt. It was not even satisfying. It was a relief. The pressure was gone. The project was complete. The HR call ended. The screens went dark. The husbands stood. One by one, they were 4. Broken. Silent men. They filed out of the room. Not one of them looked at us. Not one of them touched us. When the heavy door opened, a gust of cold, clean mountain air swept into the room, and then they were gone. We were alone, the 4 of us. The silence was absolute. Finally, Naomi let out a breath, a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "My God," she said, slumping in her chair. "We just hosted a funeral for 4 marriages." I walked past her. I went to the glass doors that led to the balcony. I pushed one open and stepped out. The snow had stopped. The air was frigid, sharp, and clean. Below me, the entire valley glittered with lights, quiet and cold. I did not know what tomorrow would look like. I did not know where I would live. But I knew this. The day I drove back to the office, the day I thought I was just grabbing a forgotten file, I thought I had made a small, stupid mistake. It turns out that was not a mistake at all. That was the day I signed my release papers from a life of betrayal. I went back inside. I walked to the head of the table. I closed the laptop. The file, Operation Fogged Windows, was saved, and it was done. I looked at Jenna, Lydia, at Naomi. I nodded. The 4 of us walked out of that conference room, our heads high. We walked down the long, carpeted hallway. We did not run. We did not cry. And we did not for 1 second, look back. We left them in that room, with the dying fire and the cold, hard truth. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you are listening from, so please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and if you want to support this story, please hit that hype button so more people can hear it.